Hello everyone, I hope you are all doing well. In today's video, I'll be sharing with you on how to effectively answer law problem question with time management. It is worthy of note that the law career is a professional one, and as a law student, much money is expected from you and you are not expected to answer questions like other students or a commoner. Law questions can take the form of essay question, multiple choice question, and problem question. But I will be explaining about problem question in this video. So watch out for my next videos where I will be explaining about essay questions and multiple choice questions. So get your jotter and pen, sit back, relax, and stay tuned. I will be right back. Welcome back. Law problem question usually take the form of scenario, and at the end of the story, the examiner will ask you to advise the parties or a particular party. The following are the tips to take note before you answer law problem question. Tip number 1. Always read the question carefully and ensure you understand the question. Slow down and don't make the mistake of skim reading the question and rushing to write down your answers. After taking your time to understand the scenario, always pay attention and take note of the last sentence in the question so you don't give your answer outside box. Take for instance, if at the end of the scenario you are asked to advise Mr. B, your advice and the end of your answer should be to Mr. B. And if at the end of the scenario you are asked to advise Mr. A and C, you are to advise Mr. A and C as if they are your clients and you are acting as their lawyer. And if at the end of the scenario you are asked to advise the parties, that means that you should give your advice for and against. A lot of students usually forget to give their advice for and against while answering law problem questions which requires them to advise the parties. They get carried away and only give their advice for a party whom they think they will act as a lawyer for in reality. So I will advise you take note of this. Tip number 2. Find a way to break down the question if the storyline is too long for you to comprehend, so you don't waste your time reading it all over multiple times. Take notes or write down some key facts or words so as to help you digest the problem question. For the same reason, it is good to occasionally check in back and reread the question as you write down your answers. Tip number 3. Always look out for red herrings which the examiner might include in the details of the question to put you off, so be careful of such tricks. Tip number 4. Be practical. Unlike essay question, this is not an opportunity to engage in academic debate. Instead, imagine that you are a real lawyer giving advice to a real client, as if you are explaining the law and evaluating their circumstances and what the outcome in real terms will be. Showing off won't fetch you extra mark. Tip number 5. Answer the question set. Make sure you are answering the exact question with the exact facts that you have been given. Do not include your imaginary line of question. No, showcase sympathy for your party in the scenario given while attempting your question. So many students slip up because they do not check back in with the question given and they end up discussing a marginally relevant issue. Always look back to make sure you are directly answering the question set. You can use the same terminology the question uses to avoid straying. Tip number 6. Do not write introduction while answering problem question. It is not required like it is in long essay question, but depending on the type and choice of your lecturer, you can just give a brief definition of a keyword or legal concept in the question. Then you can continue with the required method for answering problem question, which is the ILAC or IRAC rule. Tip number 7. Do not revisit your answers in your conclusion. Your conclusion is where you give a brief comment and your advice to the required party or parties you are to advise in the question. So don't bother revisiting your answer in your conclusion because it will only waste your time and still not fetch you extra marks. Tip number 8. Be flexible and make use of paragraphs. The required method for answering law problem question is the HILAC or IRAC rule. The I stands for issue or issues. It is in this paragraph that you will state or identify the legal issues in the question given. The R stands for rule, and in the case of ILAC, the L stands for law. It is in this paragraph you will explain the legal issues identified and give the relevant rule of law, that is, statutory provision or case law. The A stands for application. It is in this paragraph that you will apply the rule of law identified earlier with the factual scenario in the question. The C stands for conclusion, which is usually the end result. It is in this paragraph you will give your opinion and advice. I will give an illustrating example and answer it so you can easily digest this video. So for instance, if the question is Mr. Ade hired Mr. Eze to transport 10 of his sheep by boat during a storm. 8 of the sheep were washed overboard. Ade sued Eze to recover damages for the loss of the 8 sheep due to Eze's alleged neglect with a certain order made by the Contagious Diseases Animals Act, of which purpose was to prevent the spread of infectious disease from being communicated from animal to animal. The Act required any ship bringing sheep or cattle from any foreign port to have the animals confined and divided into holding pens for certain dimension, advised Mr. Ade. You can start by giving a brief definition of interpretation of statute. Your next paragraph will be where you will identify the issue in the question. But in this question, the only issue is whether or not the negligent act complained of under the Contagious Disease Animals Act must be directly related to the purposes of the act in order for the action to be successful. In your next paragraph, you will give a brief explanation about the facts in issue raised earlier and give the relevant rule of law. But in this case, the relevant rule of law is the case of Gorris versus Scott. So you can state the case of Gorris versus Scott 1874, wherein the plaintiff sued the defendant to recover damages for the loss of his sheep and loss due to defendant's negligence of observing certain provision of the Contagious Disease Animals Act. The complaint was, however, dismissed. You will then continue in another paragraph. Gorris argues that the loss of his sheep would not have occurred if Scott had confined the sheep in pens as required by the Act. However, the Act's provisions were enacted solely for sanitation purposes, not to protect against damage or loss of goods. If the reason for the suit had been related to the spread of disease or had caused unnecessary suffering by the sheep, Gorris' action may have been maintained, but the damage complained of is totally separate from the purpose of the Act. In your next paragraph, you will continue by writing what the court held in the case cited. The court held that the negligent act complained of under a specific statute must be directly related to the purpose of the statute in order for the action to be successful. The case between Ade and Eze is of similar facts to that of Gorris versus Scott, and using the decision of the court in Gorris versus Scott as a precedent to determine similar case afterward arising. Mr. Ade's action against Mr. Eze under a specific statute of which purpose is not directly related to the action cannot be successful. That is where you have applied the relevant case with the scenario in the question. Then your last paragraph is the conclusion. You can use the word in conclusion or conclusively. Conclusively, the negligent act complained of under a specific statute must be directly related to the purposes of the statute in order for the action to be successful. After then, you will give your advice to the party. But I usually use this. I hereby advise Mr. Ade to sue Mr. Eze under the requisite statutory provision of law, because his initial action cannot be successful against Mr. Eze under the Contagious Diseases Animals Act, of which purpose differs from the wrong suffered. And that's all. Don't get bothered if your answer is not that voluminous, like why answering long essay question. You can just write 1.5 a page and still get your full mark. It is that simple. I hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to give this video a thumb up. Don't forget to share this video with your friends. Don't forget to comment any question you have as the content of this video. And if you haven't subscribed to this channel, please use this opportunity to do so by just clicking the word subscribe below. See you all in my next video. Thank you and bye.